I want to call to order the October 10th, 2017 meeting of the Central Parish Utilities Committee. Would everyone please stand for the invocation and please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Dear Lord, we thank you for this day. Lord, as we drift into these late hours, we ask for patience and wisdom and respect. Lord, it's with a heavy heart that we ask that you put your hand upon the DeLone family in Santa Monica for the loss of Mr. Joe DeLone, a wonderful husband and family man. We ask this in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, please note that all committee members are present. There's no chair's additions. Public comments. If you wish to speak, please sign in and bring it up here, and we'll give you your time to speak when that agenda item comes up. We'll move on to agenda item number 5, request for proposal, environmental professional services and testing and inspection of Highway 22 sewer system. Ms. Jones Shivers.
Good evening. On September 21st, 2017, the Purchasing Department received 3 proposals for environmental services for Highway 42 sewer testing and inspection. After review, the Non-Engineering Selection Committee recommends accepting the proposal submitted by Compliance Enviro Systems Incorporated and to authorize the parish president to begin contract negotiations for this service and to place on the parish council October 19, 2017 consent agenda.
So moved.
The chair would entertain a motion. We have a motion by Mr. Joseph, second by Mr. Satterley. Any discussion? So we're looking for this on the next agenda going forward.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. And could you pull the microphone, Ms. Jones?
The budget on the project is $200,000.
Thank you, ma'am. Any further discussion? Any opposition? Motion passes. We'll move on to agenda item number 6, quality report, TMB.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, we have representatives from TMB here tonight to kind of discuss water quality. I think it's important that that this committee knows what's happening on the water system and how it's functioning. So I asked them to come to give a presentation on that tonight. So if they would.
Thank you.
Gentlemen.
Please reintroduce yourself when you come up. We've met before.
My name is Chris Johnson. I work with Thornton Musso and Bellman. I've been doing so for 4 years.
Right. Tony Golf with Thornton Musso and Bellman.
Yes.
I hope, did y'all receive the handouts? Okay. What you see in front of you is basically a quarterly report card. This is the quarterly report card for the third quarter of 2017. Just to briefly go over it, not to go into too much detail, but if we start at the top, chlorine residuals are pretty consistent throughout. That's what you're going to find at almost every water plant. The next box over does not apply to y'all. The next box, distribution ATP monitoring. This is something that we do for y'all. It is a measurement of biological activity in the distribution system. What you can see in September especially, the number of samples taken, 14. The average ATP residual was 0.93 picograms per milliliter. Now, in layman's terms, well, what you're really actually shooting for is 0.1 to a 10 picogram per milliliter. So as you can see, you're performing very well. This probably has to do with the fact that we did a chlorine burn or a switch to free chlorine. That it cleans out, in effect, most distribution piping. It was successful, and the numbers bear it out. If we move to the middle of the page and look at total trihalomethane and haloacetic acids, what you'll see are, yet again, the plant performing very well. The MCL, maximum contaminant level of trihalomethanes, is 80 parts per billion. Compliance for this is on a running annual average. What you see here in the shaded in green are the running annual averages for each site. As you can see, it falls well below the 80 parts per billion. Doesn't really even come close to being out of compliance. What trihalomethanes and HA5s actually are, they're regulated by EPA, and if you go over these limits for extended periods of time, they're known to be carcinogenic. So this is obviously a very good number to keep down and keep low. The same goes with the HA5s, very low numbers throughout. This is a direct result of good quality control at the plant. Right underneath, you'll see plant effluent corrosion. We also monitor corrosion. As we all know, what happened in Flint, Michigan, they did not monitor corrosion. We treat your distribution with corrosion inhibitor, and what we see are some more good results. In yellow, we send off corrosion coupons to a separate lab, and they analyze them for us to show the mils per year lost inside of distribution piping. These numbers, especially considering that they were taken during the summertime, are just really beautiful numbers. Now, what you'd say, what would be bad numbers? Generally speaking, you don't want to be above a 3. But what you can see here, it's 0.54 for mild steel and 0.58 for copper. Down at the bottom, what you can see is total organic carbon monitoring. Total organic carbon are the precursors to trihalomethanes and haloacetic acids. When water is treated with chlorine, basically the total organic carbon reacts with the chlorine to create high trihalomethanes or haloacetic acids. The ratio is what you actually have to look at to see how well the plant is doing. And it comes as no surprise that these trihalomethanes and HA5s are low, because the TOC removal ratio is actually, more often than not, 2 times the actual required amount that is required by LDH. So what's going on at the plant at PUA is, in my opinion, and I'm sure Tony agrees, is actually pretty exemplary. And now we've added the St. James side to it, so that water is being fed to St. James, which actually has turned out to be better for the people of St. James, or people that were fed by the St. James side. If we turn the page, you can look at, we don't have a dashboard report for the ACUD assumption side, only because a lot of those numbers don't apply. TOC, you can't really measure because y'all are not in control. Y'all are actually buying the water. There is one, so a nitrification report, LDH actually requires you to have a nitrification report every quarter. The one here is actually fairly good, except for one Bro Road, which is the endpoint. A lot of flushing has had to occur because they're trying to keep residuals up. Now, I know that a booster station has, it's about to be put into service to actually try and help fix that issue. But I think also we should consider possibly connecting it to PUA, because PUA is doing such a good job.
We've discussed that.
Yeah, right.
It's definitely in the plans.
And as you can see, for THMs and HA5s, they're all in compliance. So even the water that you are buying from Assumption meets the standards and continues throughout the system. Do you all have any questions?
No, I mean,
Is all the testing, is that third party? That's within your
Yeah.
organization or is it third party?
So the THMs and HA5s are compliance data. That is separate lab. So that's THMs, HA5s, and TOC. That's all compliance data.
Yeah.
Nitrification testing for ATP, which is biological testing, that's done by us. It's more of a quality control
Yeah, I just
mechanism.
wondering the equipment, like the chromatographs and everything, it's,
Oh, we send off, well, these THMs and HA5s are sent off, they're actually taken by the state.
Yeah.
And
State-approved lab.
state-approved labs
Right.
need to run those, along with the TOCs. Also, we have a separate lab that's not affiliated with us, that are running y'all's corrosion coupons,
okay.
so.
Any questions? Mr. Satterley?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, gentlemen. What is the LDH requirement as far as frequency of monitoring of the, using your terms, flint metals, the mild steel and copper corrosion?
Nothing's required. In fact, you're not even required by law to treat the water with corrosion inhibitor, which we do.
We have no state requirement to
It's on
check?
lead and copper.
Oh, for lead, they
Yeah.
have lead and copper rules.
Okay.
And that.
Because those are heavy metals, and it's central nervous system toxic.
Oh, yeah. No, for lead and copper, that is initiated by the state. Now, that's something entirely separate. They have regular intervals that they require of each system.
Monthly, quarterly?
No, I
It's,
think
it's on their own schedule.
I think it's dependent on the number of positives and the levels that were measured, in the previous set of testing for lead and copper, but there's nothing like monthly.
Okay, well, I see that we're below 3, and that's a good thing, right? At least when we monitored in the second and fourth quarters. Is there a particular reason why the first and third quarter wasn't monitored?
It's only because we just do twice a year. We actually have some.
Yeah, it's two different things. What he's talking about, we're not actually measuring lead and copper residuals. We're sticking a piece,
Right,
corrosion
corrosion.
coupon.
I understand.
And measuring
I understand.
corrosion rate.
Right.
Yeah, it's different.
So we're not actually measuring lead and copper. However, if we're worried about things like leaching,
Well, as an independent testing agent, cut to the chase, T, M, and B feels like twice a year is sufficient.
yeah, I mean, I would say so. But we actually do have some corrosion coupons in currently. So
Okay.
so we're going to probably continue to do it quarterly. But we do have them in right now. As far as the reason why you would obviously use corrosion inhibitor, it's pretty clear, but you just don't want the lead to leach into the, which is what happened in Flint, leached into the system. Corrosion inhibitor at times would convince, so.
And is it fair to say, gentlemen, that the reason the ATP on the bought water from Assumption rose its ugly head on Bro Road to the extraordinarily high number of 5345 picograms
Yes.
per milliliter, is that because the nitrite got out of whack there?
It's because the total chlorine residual is always low. It's historically low
That's
there.
indicative that there could have been some microbial growth there.
Oh, there is. I mean, there was.
On that particular
On
day.
that day of testing, there was. And that's just the way it is. Now, there is no compliance number that LDH has for ATP.
How'd you know that was my next question?
I just assumed.
Good assumption.
It's nitrite.
Basically, the nitrite number, they have a recommended nitrite number. to take action.
And are there any water quality requirements for, this is nitrite, for nitrates?
Nitrate, well, yeah, there are. 10 is the MCL, 10 milligrams per liter is the MCL. However, they view nitrite as more important, I get, a more important number.
Well, they're
So
using,
we don't have to monitor nitrates? I mean, in poultry watering systems, nitrates and nitrites are the two big things.
Right.
That's my background. I apologize for that.
Right, no apology necessary. The way we've always actually looked at it is nitrite, so you're in a chloraminated system.
Right.
You're feeding ammonia into the system.
Correct.
So you're gonna end up yielding nitrite or nitrate, possibly. There is always that possibility. Nitrite, taken in tandem with a high ATP number, will basically say, well, that's a problem area, so we need to have some
Right.
remediation of some sort.
But if we connect this particular system into the PUA eventually, that will likely all go away.
it will go away.
I would
Should.
loop it.
Or, I mean.
Hopefully, I mean, at dead ends, which this is the dead end.
Right.
You would
End
hope,
user, yeah.
you never know. You can never say yes, totally. But if you're feeding a higher total chlorine, then that has the potential to knock out any biological activity. I mean, if you could get somehow above a 1 at Bro Road, then it shouldn't be any issue. Nitrification should not be an issue. ATP, biological activity, nitrite, nitrate shouldn't be an issue.
I don't think, I mean, really the intent for monitoring for nitrite and nitrate in these nitrification plans, it's not that they're necessarily worried about you consuming nitrite or nitrate.
Right.
It's telling you that you
Right.
have biofilm, which potentially may
Right.
be an amoeba.
Right.
So even at these nitrite levels, that nitrite is not a problem. It just tells you that biologically, the water
Right.
may be a problem.
Right.
That's
That-
my questions. No further questions, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir.
Ken's got something like that.
Mr. Dawson.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to reiterate, this sample is at the MRT. That's the maximum residual time at the end point, and I think it just almost go to the end of a field on Bro Road. We always noticing that we're going to have higher issues, with some possible microbial growth at that particular point. One thing that we talked about doing is kind of looping the system eventually.
Right.
And then have it run back so we won't have any dead end spots like that. But I do want to reiterate that we do take lead samples and copper samples as required by LDH. All our numbers have come back great. And I think, the issue that what we're seeing here is very good water quality. After we've taken over a plant, all the things we've been dealing with, the water quality looks great. So I thank these gentlemen for their time that they put out there working with our operators and Carl. So far doing a great job of maintaining great water quality in this system.
Thank you, sir. Yes, Mr. Johnson.
So at the Bro Road, when we talked about connecting the people system or our utilities to that line from Assumption, isn't it mostly just a function of length of pipe that is going through? I mean, is that a dead end? It's true, but I mean, coming all the way in from Assumption compared to coming in from where we would tie into the system and put it there, you got a certain amount of time average for your chemicals in that system, and so you would lose a lot of that based off of where it's coming from.
You're saying if you make the tie-in,
One versus the other. So if, as from Ascension, as you said, you're on the dead end of the system at that point, and so we're getting it from the plant in Assumption Parish. So you're talking miles of piping between the 2 points.
right,
And so if we would make that tie-in coming from PUA, the length of that connection or the length of that pipe going to that end is greatly reduced. So you should have better chemical residuals at that point.
yes, I'm not sure where that tie-in would be. I haven't
Right.
seen. But if you reduce the distance, it should help.
Yeah, theoretically.
And,
Right.
tower operation
That's
and
an issue.
engineering is also something that you should probably be addressed.
That's an
Right.
issue.
We're looking at that.
And towards quality, I guess, and I think you guys were tasked with helping us, and Ken may be able to answer this better, but where are we at as far as the procedures for the plant operation and updating those and making sure we're on task with that and they're where they need to be at?
Well, we're in the process of doing so. All of the testing procedures, the normal lab procedures and everything are in place, okay? So all the testing that needs to be done in the lab, I mean, these are HOC standard testing procedures, so they're in place. SOPs for the plant are being written, okay? So they're being written now. Now, we have some other things that we're adding to the plant. We're adding some other, how can I say, testing, monitoring system, I should say, monitoring and that kind of thing. So once those get in, then we will update those SOPs. But we're doing a lot of updates to it. Just to give you another indication, we just had an engineering firm, and these guys were part of it, that did a detailed analysis of the whole plant. And there's a report that should be coming out in the next few weeks that's going to detail all of the initial projects inside the plant that need to be done to improve productivity there, okay? We had Hartman, we had Buckhorn, TMB, all of them were out there looking at the plant, trying to identify all the possible improvements. So there's a lot of other monitoring that we're putting in, Mr. Johnson, that's going to be incorporated in SOPs, but the SOPs are being looked at. Testing procedures have been, are in place.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any further discussion? Thank you guys for your presentation. We appreciate
Not a
it.
problem. Thank y'all.
All right.
We'll move on to agenda item number 7, status report on the Hillaryville, Darrah, CDBG wastewater project. GSA.
How are you? Good evening, council. Subsequent to our last update, we met with parish officials to try and determine a path forward on this project to help reduce the overall cost of the CDBG project and also make provisions to ensure that some of the future developments were accounted for in this particular project. So what resolution we came to, there were several items that were decided to be adjusted to some of Evans Graves' plans. Those items included resizing one of the gravity lines on LA 22 to anticipate the use of an 8-inch force main for Riverton and Pelican Point, redesigning the existing lift station capacity to handle Riverton and the future filing of Pelican Point, or the current filing of Pelican Point, adding back into the base bid a generator package, which is a requirement of the grant, refurbishing the existing 80,000 gallon per day treatment train that's at the Hillaryville wastewater treatment plant. Right now, it's not being used, so it's in poor shape. So that was a need to make sure we would be able to account for the flows from Darrow, Hillaryville, and Ashterland. And then also providing a stub out on the east side of one of the manholes that flows to the Hillaryville plant for future force mains from Riverton. And the final one was deletion of pavement restoration that was discussed at an earlier meeting, and that would be covered from some other funds from Ascension Parish. So we met with Evans Graves, presented all these things that needed to be adjusted in their plans. They're currently working on a cost proposal. They've completed theirs. There is an electrical cost that they're waiting for from a subcontractor for that, for the lift station modifications. We anticipate receiving that tomorrow, so hopefully by the end of the week, we'll have all our costs necessary and the parish can approve that and have them move forward with design changes. Any questions?
Yes, Mr. Johnson.
David, what are you hearing as far as projections on it? Are we going to fall within budget this time with the adjustments made, or?
Unfortunately, due to the extra work to account for that Riverton development and the additional filing of Pelican Point, there will be some amount that will have to be paid by the parish. So we're not going to fall within the bid amount. The hope was to bring everything down below that 5.5 million, but unfortunately, in accounting for all of those future flows, you're not going to be able to do so. Yes.
Thank you.
Are we're not going to lose any quality of the project?
No, in fact, the quality of the project will be increased because you're accounting for all these future developments, so you're actually getting more bang for your buck by incorporating some of that future development into this project.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
Yes.
Do we know how much
Mr.
over the
Turner.
budget?
Evans Graves is currently working on a proposal. According to our estimates, it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 1.9 million that we would have to account for. And the reason that we say that is because the original bid was a low bid, but if you look at all of the bids that came in, there were 3 bids very close together. And those 3 bids look more indicative of some of the items and some of the pricing that we would receive. Yes, sir.
The loan money, is that gonna be used on this project to secure that master plan in that corridor?
There's a possibility. I mean, we talked about the possibility of using SRF funding as we move forward with long-term planning for that project. Another thing to consider is that also from the Corps of Engineering, we just got awarded another $500,000 for wastewater projects, and that's being applied to that project as well. So what GSA is doing is looking at how to utilize all those funds to get that whole project done. On the issue with the actual overage, I mean, when we actually had the first bid to come in, the $300,000 bid was non-responsive because of something that they did. Okay, the next bid was like 1.2. So we're going up to 1.7, but in the 1.7 amount, we're making sure that we have the capacity, okay, at the plant to take in Riverton, because we don't want to build it and then have to come back and dig it up and expand it because now we're adding Riverton. So that, we understood that the parish would have to pay that extra cost, but the reason why the extra cost is there because we are looking at future expansion, because Riverton is a development that will be coming out there.
So you will be coming back to us with
I think
some-
that amount has already been approved in the budget. Am I right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that is already in the
I'm
budget.
just saying if we need any further
Yes, sir.
explanation from Mr.
Yes, sir.
Fielder.
But but what we're talking about doing this increase is already in the budget.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any further questions? Mr. Turner, you good? All right. We'll move on to agenda item number 8. Parish Utilities of Ascension Report, Mr. Dawson. And we'll move on back to our Finance Department. Or,
Carl's gonna do this one.
Carl? Okay.
All right.
I thought you was handing that microphone behind you, man. I apologize. I'm looking behind.
Dawn got nervous back there.
Go ahead, Carl, I'm sorry.
All right, that's fine. Good evening, Mr. Chairman,
Good evening.
and committee members. In August of 2017, we had 53,446 gallons sent to the distribution systems. The cost of producing, the expenditures for producing that water was $99,071. And we took in $149,162, which brings us to a cost per 1,000 gallons of $1.85.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, I had a couple of things to it as well. We were tasked with coming back and presenting actual numbers of what it takes to produce water. So what we had to do was that we had to isolate the plant itself.
Mhm.
And so we isolated the plant itself and look at strictly the cost as better we can do it. And thank finance, as Gwen and Dawn have done a great job of working with this, that we know there's so much fine tuning, but this is a real, reasonable number. So we were able to isolate those costs, look at raw water coming in, what it actually takes to produce water that's going outside of the plant. Based on that number, this is what we have. If you look at the lower portion of the graph, it's also talk about some of our estimates on leaks. and
Mr.
things.
Sir, we don't have it.
We don't have none of that.
You don't have this?
No, we don't have none of
Nope,
Oh, Carl?
not in the package.
that. Not even on the computer. Not that I can
I'm
see.
sorry, guy. I thought you made copies of this. Gave who?
Oh, are we on number 8 or 9? I'm confused.
Who you gave them to?
On number 8,
Okay. There's nothing in the Novus.
that's what I'm saying.
Oh, y'all have copies of it? Yeah, just pass those out, yeah.
Not unless it was misstapled or something.
They just gave me that.
Let's go, we'll share.
Two share. Oh, you got another one?
Let's share this one.
Yeah, cool.
We're good.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Do y'all have something left to read or what?
Yeah, I have one to read from.
All righty.
All right, I'm sorry, I thought y'all had that. If you look at the total gallons sent to distribution, okay, it was a little over 53 million gallons, okay? The water production expenditures was just that. We isolated the plant and look at the expenditures inside the plant of what it takes to produce water. Chemicals inside the plant, the operators, the personnel, anything, electricity, just for the plant. Total revenues from PUA is the revenue that was generated from actual dollars that was received from customers. If you look at the calculations, which is kind of shown at the bottom there in writing, how the calculations were performed, you're looking at $1.85 per 1,000 gallon cost. The lower portion of this graph shows estimated leaks and flushing gallons, okay, of being about 12 million. We also have a number on the St. James consumption side, which is the amount of water that's being provided to St. James from PUA. Councilman Joseph been asking about this. One thing we can do now, Councilman, is that since we're looking at what actually the cost that we have that we produce in water, now we can do the accounting that's necessary to flow back to PUA from ACUD1, okay, for that production of that water. It tells you the total revenue of gallons billed, total consumption gallons, and the water loss. Now, some of these things on the flushing side, as well as on the total water loss side, we're looking at means in which to reduce that number, because there's some things that we can do. Councilman Joseph and I rode around last Thursday, and we're in the process of taking care of some leaks that are visible at some fire hydrants to reduce that. Another thing that we're doing is looking at piggyback customers on systems. So we're going back and we're doing kind of a tally. Carl has initiated a program where its employees will be going looking at the water meter and then doing a visual to see if there are any other connections on that, possibly on that water meter. And then if they are, we will take the necessary actions to get them off, and so that they will have their individual meters. The second page kind of breaks it down a little bit more. If you look at the leaks and flushing estimate consumption, it shows where some of these numbers are coming from. Some of them are metered inside the plant. As you can see, if you look at filter backwash, gallons are the amount of water there. People been in plant know that that's something that can be monitored, and is our best ability to try to look at that particular total. This is done just for August. The finance is working back to work back through those numbers throughout the whole year. So there will be a graph that's going to be provided that you see what we're doing from January to date, and we'll continue it out. We still are fine-tuning this a bit, but I think that I feel pretty comfortable that at least the cost per thousand are pretty close to something that we can kind of rest our hands on. Not taking into account the distribution costs, not taking into account the administrative costs, just at the plant.
So what we're saying in the total business plan is that you're talking about that's what it costs to produce water, that's the cost.
That's the cost.
The administrative cost is, drives the cost per thousand up,
yes, sir.
Of course.
Exactly. Distribution costs drive that cost per thousand up. But we wanted to look at just at the plant in this one.
Yeah. If we want to buy and sell, that's kind of where we're looking at.
Yes, sir.
Yes, Mr. Joseph.
Yeah, and that number right there is a very good number, because right now we're purchasing water from Assumption at about $2.30
Yes, sir.
a thousand gallon. We was doing St. James about $2.40.
Right.
So this here will we hook up ACUD1 on the Assumption side, will give us some flexibility to look at the rates.
Yes, sir.
From a whole of what we need to do.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Assuming that we, take over more business and not duplicate our efforts.
Yes, sir.
And you don't need twice the administration and that type of stuff.
Exactly.
So,
Okay.
I just got I can let Mr. Johnson go first, but I'm just saying is that one thing we do know is we basically discussed it before, is that, when we look at the water loss, is that, the infrastructure, we need a plan forward to address infrastructure improvements, repairs and improvements, so,
Yes,
so
sir.
that's something that we're constantly working on.
Yes, sir.
Yes, Mr. Johnson?
So Ken, I'm not a finance guy, but I got so we've got it down to $1.85 on a cost per 1,000 gallons without the distribution cost and without the administrative cost in there.
Yes, sir.
So, and maybe it's an industry-wide way to look at it, but it's kind of misleading in the sense that no matter what you produce, you still have
got
administrative
distributed.
costs and distribution costs and all those other things. So what is the cost per gallon with all that figured into it?
We will have those numbers to you at the next meeting. The goal is to break it out three ways. What it costs to produce water at the plant. Once it goes out of the plant and goes into distribution, what does that do to that cost per 1,000? Okay? And then add the administrative cost and what that do to the cost per 1,000. What I wanted to do is to be able to break it out three ways. So if we look at it as high in one area, then this committee and all of us to say, well, we need to target this as a function that we need to do to drive down those costs. But the initial question, especially where this was driven, is when we actually provide water to St. James, what is it? How much it costs us to make water so that the accounting can be done with what we were providing in St. James so we can know how to do the accounting from PUA to
So are your
ACUD.
salaries and benefits of your plants workers figured into that?
Into this, yes, into this number, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And like Randy was just saying, I guess one of the other questions, so we're using 1.9 million gallons a month to backwash filters at the plant?
Yeah.
That's excessive by a lot, in my opinion. I mean, unless we got a whole heck of a lot of filters that either in poor shape or something. That's
Could be, and I could bring the operators in here to kind of talk a little more about that in detail at the next meeting, Councilman. But, that's the actual number. And then what we can look at, I don't know whether it's turbidity increase at the river or something like that then cause some issues with the filters, but we can look into that. And again, the goal here is to start by breaking this down. If we start looking at the critical path of the item that we need to do first to probably reduce cost, okay, it probably be looking at more toward the distribution system because we know that there are a lot of losses in that, and that's why we are functioning at looking at fixing leaks and make sure people not piggybacking, okay? And then start to drill down to items that we can always, what we need to do to start to reduce our cost. And actually the total cost of what it takes to provide water and price per 1,000 is indicated.
and we're selling water to St. James now? We're going back the other way with it?
No. We-
Just Lemonville. It's
Right,
just
right.
that, that's the system that
That
St. James provide water
to.
to the jailhouse
Right,
and
right,
all that.
right.
They call it, but it's Lemonville area right there.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
all right, thank you.
Any further discussion? Mr. Satterlee?
No, not so much a discussion, just a comment. I would agree with Benny that the 1.9 for filter backwash million gallons is excessive, but actually it pales by comparison to the leaks in the main breaks at
Right.
9.4.
Yeah.
I agree.
Exactly.
That's a 4.5-fold
Absolutely.
difference, just simple math there, and
Absolutely.
so we got to figure out what's going on there for sure. We just I don't like the expression "pissing water down the drain," but we're throwing a whole lot of potentially good water away. It sounds like. And again, I'm no engineer, but whatever the problem is on the filtering with the backwash, we need to actually take a good look at that as well. That's all I have.
I mean, the distribution, to Doc's point, the distribution system is in need of a lot of upgrades and work, whereas the filter, potentially, you may have some changes there, but I mean, that may be an operator situation where letting it go for a few minutes longer than what they actually may need to,
Wait.
kind of thing. So
We'll look
it's
into
something
it.
we can fix in-house potentially, or at least save some of that.
We'll look into it.
Mr. Sadler?
Yeah, wait, I'm sorry, I did have another question. Something else that Mr. Johnson said piqued my interest. Be absolutely certain that the numbers that you're presenting to us in this two-page document is not taking account administrative cost or distribution cost. But you said it does take into account the salaries of the people working in the plant?
Yes.
So in other words, the $1.85 per gallon is reflected,
Yes, sir.
salaries reflected into that?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Joseph?
Yeah, and I just want to make a statement. Carl, you may correct me on this here, but leaks and man leaks, the city of Downsonville been doing a lot of sewage work, and we've been finding some of the major leaks is running into the drainage system, and that is that really been fixing some of them, and we don't know how long they've been going into the drainage system. So I know they've been working with the city with that issue there. Hopefully that number there, just from that, will drive that down a little bit. I can't, you know.
Yeah,
But I done drove around and seen some of them, and it was some real water leaking. So,
and
Yeah, hydrant
we-
not being closed all the way, you're gonna have some underground leakage in that, and if they don't close them all the way
Yeah,
off
they-
when they use them,
they're
that's,
vented.
they're dry barrel hydrants, is what they're expressed to do, so they have, until it's fully open or fully closed, it's gonna leak. For an example. But that's one, so we estimate about 1.65 million gallons a day of production at the plant. If we got 53.4 million gallons for the month of August in 31 days, it's about 1.6 million gallons a day that we're processing.
Right. Well, thank you, sirs. This is good numbers to start off with, and, you know, something that we've been trying to look forward to, gives a number in our head. And keep in mind, you threw a number out there, so you'll have to justify it for the rest of your life. So sharpen your pencil and go back and make sure it's there. And if we do need any clarifications on the numbers, please come back to us with them. All right, because we're looking at that number. It's the number that we've been searching for as we incorporate the combination of all our utilities there and trying to find some common ground. Yes,
I hate that. Is this gonna be part of a monthly report from now on?
Yes, sir, Councilman Joseph, we are part of your monthly report.
That's what I wanna hear. Thank
you don't know if it changes a penny or what?
you. Well, customer base.
Oh,
I
customer
mean,
base, all right.
Customer base is based on, I think we're short. We're way short
Yeah.
on the customer base.
And Mr.
Yes,
Chairman?
Mr. Sadler?
In addition to the request by Mr. Joseph, I'd like, you know, obviously, this is, I don't know how this was decided to do, this is just August.
Yeah.
So this is just August.
Yeah.
So after we start in
Monitoring.
November monitoring by monthly to the committee, we're gonna get all the way back to the,
We'll get all the way back
to when we purchased the asset.
yeah, we could go as far as, yeah, I mean, we have the
Monthly.
data on a monthly basis. Yes, that's what we want to do.
And we're gonna get January 2016, February, March, April.
mean, they have it.
We've
They
been
have
asking
all
for
the
this for a long time.
No,
You ain't
we
had,
only
you ain't-
purchased
you
it
ain't had
for-
that long.
Yeah, whenever we purchased it. All right, right. So we
Let's
have
see.
that since we purchased it. We have that.
Yeah,
The
we
reason why
signed-
we
I think
picked
signed
August-
it in the middle of the year last year at some point.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it was more than a year, wasn't it?
In
We
November.
purchased, but we didn't
November
take
is
it
whenever-
over.
September-
The testing guy's nodding his head back
September-
there, so he would
It
know
was
he's
September.
testing the water.
They remember. September 20th.
Thank you. Right.
Reason why we pick August is because we had all of the data, all the information. What I wanted to do was focus on 1 month to make and verify numbers. And Carl can tell you, and finance can tell you, we went over this over and over again to make sure we felt very comfortable with the numbers. When we verified the numbers were good and we felt that our calculations were good in those fields, we moved forward with it. So we feel comfortable with moving back and generating the reports for the rest of the month.
Yeah, and if you just clear up, I think it's the blue line, the St. James consumption. There was some discussion whether, is that the correct term, the St. James consumption?
We need to, we need
We
not
need
to
to
say,
put
we
that
need
to
to say
Lemonville.
ACUD1,
Lemonville,
yeah, Lemonville. We'll
Right.
change that, yeah. We can do that.
Yes.
that's where the hotels,
That-
the
Yeah, I
jail
know, I
houses.
know
Right, right.
exactly where it's at, but
It
it
is
just, it
misleading,
led to
St. James
a
consumption.
stray question.
Right. Okay.
Okay. Which, we may be in a position to sell the St. James at some point. And, so, no further discussion, we move on to agenda item number 9, discussion of financial rate analysis for Parish Utilities of Ascension.
Let me say this, we asked Finance to do the kind of rate analysis. I know there's not a handout tonight, so Ms. Donna's going to kind of discuss that process of what they went through. We were asked to compare ACUD1 rates, okay, and apply them to PUA and determine where those numbers come out. Ms. Donna said that she could email you the information later, but we don't have a handout for you tonight on that.
Yeah, and before you get started, Dawn, I just want to let everybody know, we sat in plenty of meetings, and it's, you know, it's the financial charts for the business models are somewhat convoluted sometimes, and, you know, it's hard to compare exactly. So we appreciate all the efforts that you guys went through.
So what was done with this, and actually Celeste is the person who does all this, so if we have some questions, but she took the ACUD1 rates based on the program that we have for parish utilities, and she applied it across the board to all the different customers. She selected June as a month because of kind of an average usage for customers for industrial, residential, and then commercial. So when she did that, it looked like, and it's about a 365-page report, which I'll be happy to send you because you can see, well, I mean, you can see each residential and how much it'll go up and that sort of thing. So you'll be able to look at individuals. But it looks like the overall new rates would be about a 48% increase overall for residential, with about 31%, I'm sorry, 48% increase overall, with the residential going up around 31% on average. What this amounts to is about $63,000 extra revenue per month. And these numbers are actually very close to what Tommy Lejeune predicted back in 2015 using ACUD1's rates with Parish Utilities customers. I can also send you that information that he did initially. I apologize for not having all that here. But there's a very different rate structure between what ACUD1 does and what Parish Utility does. So it's very hard to look at the rate structure. You just have to almost do an analysis. Now, the second analysis that was done was for commercial, industrial, and industrial customers only. And this, once again, she used June, and it's another 365-page report. It'll give you about an increase of about $31,000 a month in taxes, which is about $368,000 a year. I don't have how much it would go up percentage-wise on this, but I guess we could somehow get that information for you if I could kind of look at all the different numbers and the breakdowns. But Tommy Lejeune had actually broken it down based on the customers we had back in 2015. And Celeste took June of 2017 because it was such a good average of customers, and we came very close to Tommy's numbers. So he was right on with what he projected back then. Tommy Lejeune, the auditor.
Yeah, I just want to say that I think Celeste had something, you know, maybe something less than 350 pages that we can look at was a comparison chart, and it was and it's, you know, as all the members get it, it's just a little bit strange at the, you know, we talked about, you know, 31% increase for residents. That commercial, some of the commercials would see a much higher increase.
Much higher.
And, you know, so it wasn't like, the numbers don't show that it's going to be across the board increase.
Correct.
Okay?
Correct.
But at some point, as this continues to come in front of us, that would be a decision on what we do. We want to look at the business plan and whether we say, hey, we're going to pick a percentage. We're going to try to balance the books a little bit and not kill everybody. But so I just want to say that there's something that she has together that's a little bit less than the 350 pages. Yes, Mr. Joseph.
No, I just, when she did that, she only did that increase with PUA. She didn't include the customers with ACUD1. I'm just asking a question.
Right, she just took PUA based on ACUD1's rates.
Okay.
Right.
That's what she did.
And
yes.
if we combine the total, we may see a totally different number that we can live with as a whole across the board.
Right.
Right, that's all. The numbers are based on what they are. And once again, just with the, commercial rates, you know,
Right.
I mean, hey, that's something to.
And
Mr. Johnson, go ahead.
Thank you. And I think that's one of the questions we have to ask ourselves is, because we're at a loss. That's why people were so willing to sell us this place, because they were operating at a loss. They were looking at increasing rates by 50% and felt pretty confident that they could get that rate increase through the Public Service Commission. And so do we combine or change our rates to bill the old people system the same way we bill ACUD 1? Or do we adjust the rates and continue that situation that we have there, which creates probably, and correct me if I'm wrong, creates an issue as far as dealing between the two entities and how we're billing them? Do we standardize that? And that itself gets us the rate increase we had talked about initially when we took this over, to make it get out of the red and more into the black, and then operate to where we can go in and make some improvements to the distribution system that need to be made based on some of what we were talking about earlier with all the leaks and stuff that we have there, as well as get to a point of where we minimize our potential for turning into another Flint, or there's a community here in Louisiana having the same type of issues. So, those are the type of things that, it's not that we're looking to do a rate increase just to do a rate increase. We've got efficiencies that we need to realize within the plant as well as outside of the plant to make sure that, because of the sensitivity to this system that we're now control of, we need to make sure we're operating it correctly and we're doing the right things with it. And that in turn, hopefully, will improve a lot of the system that's there and provide better services to the people that this system serves. So there's a lot of questions we have to answer, and these numbers are going to help us hopefully come to the best answer we can come to. So I'm looking forward to a lot more information.
And I just wanted, once again, that on both of these entities, ACUD 1 and the PUA, okay, that based on the charter of both of them and the way we end up being one body that governs both now, but there's two different programs there based on their revenue structure and the legal ramifications. So it's not just like treating apples like apples when it comes on the financial side of it. So it's just, you can't balance them out and everybody get charged the same in one step. There's a lot more work needs to go into this.
All right.
Mr. Sadler.
Yeah, Dawn, God bless you. But Doc Sadley's not overly, emphasis on the word, overly interested in a 360, or even a double 365-page report
Yeah, that's what I'm
on residential customers or commercial, industrial, plus industrial customers. What I'd like to see is something this committee has asked for repeatedly at multiple meetings, and we can go back to those dates and look at spots in the films. I know I've asked it. I know Mr. Joseph has asked it, and perhaps others. Far back as February, March, April, whatever. It's something we defined as a cost of services. And I see an agenda item that's listed today as a financial report, and that's well and good. But bottom line, there's got to be a way of generating a number that for this month versus the next month and the next month, going back, I'm just going to say this as far as we can. We've established now that we've at least purchased the asset more than a year ago. When it was people's water, now that it's ours, we're blah, blah, blah. How much are we operating in the red or the black? And we need that quickly so that we don't continue, and we figure out, as Mr. Dawson said earlier, and that's Ken, not Bill, can we do something about leaks? Can we do something about other ways to stem the tide, no pun intended? When can this committee actually get, month to month, like I just talked about, simple information of cost of services, from an historical perspective all the way up to the present time?
Do you want it broken down by plant, distribution, and
No.
administration?
No. I just want to know,
No.
OJ, help me here.
No.
Here's what we want.
What do you want is basically the revenues that we're collecting, okay? Real revenues that we collected,
Real.
and then based on how we
much it costs.
budgetize, how we look from the budgetized. You know how those two numbers work, I know how they work.
Right.
I mean, right.
Which would it, which would
And
it?
that's just basic, number of customers, how many commercials we had, what was the amount of gallons they purchased, and how much revenues we collected, and stuff like that.
Okay, so as far as the revenue, you want a little more detailed information. You want to know by category, residential, commercial, industrial, kind of what made up the revenue for each month,
Right.
okay?
Yeah,
And then,
Is this it, something like what you're looking at? Because if you look at page 2, it has August, but it has domestic, commercial, and industrial.
right, you
And
have
has
the
no-
total number of customers,
Sure. And-
okay?
yeah. And those-
And you know, and then I'm gonna just say, we go by total, how many disconnect we had,
Okay.
how many,
New connections.
new connection.
Sure.
And what that generated. I mean, you know, how much money that generate. I mean, some of us don't even know the cost of what is a new connection is, how much it costs.
Right,
know?
and let me, thank you, OJ. We also now know what the plant production cost was at the $1.85, but we still don't even know what the additional amount of money is associated with administrative, you said, cost and distribution cost. And all that's gonna factor into these numbers when we get the amount of customers that are connecting newly and that have been canceling out and so forth, to where we can, because eventually, you know, fellas, we're gonna have to decide, what are we gonna charge these people? And we're gonna have to have a serious justification to say, you know, Benny mentioned a minute ago, we bought an asset where one of the reasons they were interested in selling it is they weren't making money and they couldn't get the Public Service Commission to give them the rate increase. Now I guess we can just do that, but we're still gonna have to justify what it is that we're gonna do, if anything. I've got a sneaky suspicion, and I'll go on record tonight to say it's only speculation that we're losing money. I just hope you don't come back with data that shows us hemorrhaging. And that's all.
Clarify something real quick. They felt, and Ken, correct me if I'm wrong, they felt they had a good case to get 50% through the Public Service Commission. They
There you
never
go.
made it there.
Thank
So
you.
it wasn't that they couldn't get it through the Public Service, they just didn't go. They were preparing documents to go to Public Service for 50%, and they felt they had a good shot at getting
In
it.
other words, Councilman, why waste your time?
That was a letter that said that they were asking for 50% because, as rate adjustment, because they hadn't had a rate adjustment in several years.
And
They said that they could actually get a 63 to 65% increase if they included the capital projects that they were gonna do.
it's,
And the longer we wait, excuse me, the worse it could be is if we're gonna have to increase.
yeah.
Because then
Oh,
that
I
increase is
agree.
gonna be a bigger increase, just like we heard tonight from Kara. The longer we wait to fund this thing, you know, the constable's right. We're gonna come back and you're gonna ask for more money. Why? Because we're getting bigger and bigger and infrastructure's falling further and further behind. Let's not let this asset get out of control before we even owned it for a year and a half.
And in all fairness, this process we're going through is one of the fairest process, but, you know, some of our commercial rates, we're practically giving the water away.
Yes.
We're giving it to commercial, and they using a lot of water. Okay, so, I mean, by doing this here and going through it thorough, we can justify a whole lot, but we're finding out overall, their system just, they formula wasn't good for business, period. I'm gonna just say it that way. Not the numbers I seen, the numbers I done ran.
All right,
You know.
so, you know, you got your marching orders, and we understood going into this acquisition that there was gonna be some repairs, some renovations, and we understood also that it was very much in line for a rate increase. We also have a constituency on that side of the river that you have some people that are paying this much for water, some others are paying that much. And because we've got two companies over there. So we're gonna try to find some middle ground, but we definitely gotta get in the black and we gotta look at the projects ahead. Thank you, sir. With that, we'll move on to agenda item number 10. We'd, on number 10, approval of the Highway 73 contract, wastewater contract, we had Rodell Parsons here, and so we got the latest. They had to go. They had a time constraint. What we're asking for this, out of this committee tonight is this is the latest revision. It's been hammered and hammered, up until today even.
That's right.
We're gonna ask that we review this.
Sir.
I don't necessarily want to go through it paragraph by paragraph tonight.
Let's not do that.
And, Mr. Sadler, you got it, but what I'm gonna tell, as chair, I'm gonna tell y'all right now, what we're gonna be asking for is to take a brief look at this. I'd ask all committee members to get in touch with the administration with any questions you got on any paragraph or statement.
Yes.
I do intend to call for
Special meeting on the 24th.
a special meeting of this committee on the 24th, that we may get this hammered out and get it in front of the council
Yes.
at the next meeting, which is the first meeting of November, sir.
Now, and Randy, just for the people watching at home, this is a cooperative endeavor agreement with AWT?
Yes, it is.
Yep.
Based on the expansion we have in the area
Right.
and the ability to cover that,
Yes.
and the expansion that they've done in their treatment plants to handle our
Yes.
treatment needs
On Highway 73.
on Highway 73.
Where we had a road project with not a sewer plan.
Right. We were kind of forced into this business in that area. We plan on getting into this business in that area.
That's right.
Right, Mr. Sadler?
It's been rumored for the last 6 years that I've served on this committee, sir.
All right. So anyway, thank you guys very much, and like I said, Rodell Parsons is here, Tim Hardy and them, and thank the staff that they had to leave, and we feel like this is a much better draft. I just saw a quick glimpse of it. I feel like it's a much better draft than what we've had before. But I just want to let this committee know that the administration, the parish president said, hey, take a good look at it and let's throw all the questions we want at it. And we'll hammer it out by the next one. Thank you, sir.
Motion adjourned.
We have a motion to adjourn by Mr. Sadler, second by Mr. Johnson. Any opposition? We are adjourned.